Hello. Oh, can everybody hear me? It's so interesting to be, I've moderated panels before, but never like on a show floor. And it's so interesting to hear all the kind of white noise in the background, and then there's my voice right all up in my ears, you know. It's very interesting. Well, I'm Jessie. I'm the editor-at-large for Modern Luxury Interiors, and thank you guys all for coming and listening to our talk today. Who's tired? Like, have you guys been here all week? Yeah. So really, thank you for coming. I'm Jessie, and I'm going to be moderating today, but I'd like to kind of go down the row here and let you guys all introduce yourselves too. Today we're going to be talking about the power of a niche and specializing in something specific, or being a generalist and flexible and sort of, covering more ground and having a broader portfolio, and how ways that affects your business and, your approach to your designs and everything like that. So before I have you guys introduce yourself, who here considers themselves to be a specialist in something in particular? Okay, and what about a generalist? Okay. I'm a little bit of both too, which I'll share more of that in a minute. But so can you guys go down the row? We'll start with Antoine, and just let us know if you're a specialist or a generalist.
Hello, my name is Anthony O'Dever, and I'm the owner and founder of New Wave Design and Contracting. And we specialize in the restoration renovation of New York City brownstones. So I would consider myself a generalist, but I'm in a niche market. My umbrella would be, I have a bunch of specialists and I manage them all. But when I started out in this business, I really did start as generalist, and then I think the expert part is just the amount of years and the amount of jobs. The experience is where you learn what to do, what not to do. So yes, I would consider myself a generalist in a niche field, managing experts.
Okay, perfect.
I'm Lauren Schulte, and I am from Buffalo, New York. And I would say that I'm definitely a specialist. Probably like a lot of you, I do kitchens and bathrooms. I always say that I am not an interior designer, even though I can tie rooms together. I really just love to focus solely on kitchens and baths. So I'm definitely niche, but my style is what makes me a little bit more niche, on top of being certified woman-owned in a very male-dominated portion of Buffalo, New York. So I would say I'm a niche.
I'm Stephanie Wyatt. My firm is in Carmel, Indiana, which is just north of Indianapolis. We are definitely more generalists. I started out solely as a kitchen designer. Our firm right now is probably considered more interior design, but we do still do kitchens in-house. We are a dealer of a couple different manufacturers. And that's just not something that I intended to happen. It just kind of happened. Throughout our years as kitchen designers, we were getting a lot of requests to do full service design, and I thought, okay, let's do it. So we've been at that for about 6 years now.
Okay, perfect. So like Antoine, I consider myself a generalist because I wear many hats. Like, I'm a design editor, and I work for magazines, but I also do branding, for different brands and firms. And then I also do, I style interiors for photo shoots. So I feel like I wear many hats, but it's within a niche because I work within the design world. And then I also, maybe I write about design, but that bleeds into like art and architecture and travel and all different things that are sort of like their own niches, but it's so broad too. So I would love to go down now and ask if what you focus on, if that was a deliberate decision or if it's something that happened organically. You touched on it, Stephanie. Like, for example, so I've been an editor for design magazines for like 20 years, and I started styling very organically because I would go to the homes during our photo shoots to sort of art direct and make sure we got the kind of photos that we needed. So that was an organic, way that my trajectory kind of changed, that I never imagined I'd be styling. I didn't even think of that as a thing that people do at first. So can you talk a little bit about that and how you sort of ended up in your lane?
Sure. So I started out, I would say, as a generalist, but on a smaller scale, where we were doing everything. So let's just take kitchen and bathrooms, and we'd go in, and I think you need to be able to have your hand in everything to be able to manage everything further on. So I'd say very much organically is how we started. You start smaller jobs, smaller crews. As time and experience goes on, we get bigger. I think then understanding the process, because it is a process with bigger jobs, I started to just hire specialists. And then, it just was easier. But I understand what they've done because I did it. I did it myself beforehand. So I know they are more efficient. That's all they do. But I can manage them. And that way, we were able to grow. And get bigger. And then we can go into bigger things, because we do brownstones at the beginning. When we were starting to do the brownstones, it might just be a restoration job, so it wouldn't be a full gut renovation, and they're completely different types of work. So now we do full gut renovations, half restoration, and what we had to implement was more management teams and systems, so that we can control these guys. Because these guys are good, but they're all in their own world. They all know how to do it, but they want to get in. They don't want any problems. So we got to schedule everything. We got to make sure the material's there, because the last thing you want is for them to come, something doesn't go right, and then they're out. And and then you have trouble, and then it's a change order and this stuff. So I think with us, and that's the expert is great, but you got to manage them, make sure the material is there, and that's what I think that's what our niche is right now, is being able to take care of all that stuff that makes the job go well.
Thank you. And what about you? Because you start, can you tell us about your trajectory and how you, because you're a dealer, right? But you also design now. So can you talk a little bit about how that sort of evolved?
Of course. So I started, believe it or not, at a big box store. Like some people around, like I know a lot of people that started off that way because it was a safe, easy way to make mistakes. When I first came out, I made mistakes on somebody else's dollar. And then once I perfected it, and once most people don't think high end and then think of a big box. But I was starting to take the business away from some local dealers because I had become really good at what I did. And the reason for that, I have to give credit to the designers that trained me, because they had worked at some of the most prestigious showrooms in Western New York, and then decided they didn't want to be commissioned anymore and wrote out their last final years at the big box store. So they trained me how to be an amazing designer. So I came out the gate not making a ton of mistakes because they corrected them before it became a problem. And then so one of the dealers that was losing a decent amount of jobs to me poached me. And it was perfect because honestly, I could not take working one more night, one more holiday, one more weekend there. And I was like, what do you mean? I don't have to work Sundays, and sometimes it's every other Saturday, and it's 9 to 5, sold. And I'm getting paid a ton of money to do it. So I got poached, moved into the biggest firm in Western New York and loved it. And I thought, this can't be that hard. I'm going to learn how to do this for myself. And let me tell you, being your own dealer sounds really fun and luxurious, and I'm a great designer and not necessarily somebody that can do bookkeeping and all that other stuff, so you have to have a really good crew in place, and I don't regret it at all. but it's been a wild journey. And so I started off safe, and then I just kept moving my way up, and it was a great way to sort of step myself into, because there's no way I could have graduated from school and do what I do without having had to tier myself and make mistakes, like I said, on somebody else's dollar. So.
Thank you. And Stephanie, can you talk about your trajectory and how you evolved from where you started out and what you're doing today?
Yeah, so interesting enough, I fell into kitchen design out of school. My mom's kind of she's a pushy lady, and I got out of school and I was like, I lived in Chicago, I'm from Chicago, and I was like, I can't wait, I'm gonna get my job at the bar, it's gonna be amazing. And she's like, well, honey, while you're waiting for that big, amazing job, go apply at Home Depot. They're hiring cashiers for 20, like she was not gonna let me sit around at all and like just enjoy a little. So they hired me, and I was like, I'm gonna be here for 2 weeks tops, and they hired me as a cashier. And then the first night I was there, they came up and they're like, is it your degree in interior design? And I said, yeah. And they're like, well, can we train you to do kitchens? And so I was like, sure. Not even thinking anything of it. It was just kind of like going with it. And they sent me to all the NKBA classes, all the 2020 classes. So, I mean, just invaluable training. And I loved it. I mean, I really loved the technical part of it, the construction part of it, the job site part of it. You know, I feel like sometimes as interior designers, we don't get a lot of that. So I love the job site and all the things that you learn on the job site that you wouldn't necessarily learn. I worked for Home Depot for a couple of years, moved on to the Expo Design Centers. I don't know if anybody remembers those, but did that for a while. And then worked for a couple of dealers. 2 of the 3 that I worked for ended up going out of business. And so I was like, forget this, I'm doing my own thing. So I opened up my first dealership in 2008. Which unfortunately was not a great year to open up your own business. But you know, you just do what you gotta do and you push along and you keep doing what, keep on trucking. My dad's a builder, so I always had his expertise and his knowledge to reflect back on. And I did that for years and really, really, really enjoyed it. When we moved to the Indianapolis area, I just kind of picked up my business and thought, we're going to move it over and do the same thing. In Chicago, there's not a lot of new construction. It's mostly all remodels. So we did 99.9% of remodels. We moved to Indianapolis, there's a lot of new building, new construction going on. And so I was getting a lot of requests to do full service interior design. And I just kind of the same thing. I was like, yeah, we can do that. That's what my background is. And so we basically turned into a firm of me into a team of, there's 6 of us now, and we do everything from construction blueprint review, red lines, all the way through to furniture, accessories, and everything. I love that because it gives us a lot of control. It gives us a great amount of time to build a really good relationship with our clients. And it's always it's seamless at the end. Everything flows really nicely and allows us a lot of creativity. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So first we're going to talk mostly about having a niche and a specialty. So I'm curious for, in terms of having a certain area of expertise, how, sort of what opportunities do you feel that unlocks, and does it affect the way you price your services? If you consider yourself an expert in a certain area, and does it affect press opportunities that come your way, things like that? We are experts in the brownstone market. I think the only way to get there is to have projects, results, and over years of people trusting you and being able to have references and all that stuff. So I think that's what we've accomplished. As far as pricing and affecting stuff like that, the more you grow, prices go up. I think just what we have, when we started was, I was, as you said, many hats. I did most of the stuff, paperwork, stuff. I love hands-on doing the work.
but then you went into management levels, wasn't as much fun. And what I found out then, you need to start hiring people that do the jobs that you don't like to do, because I'm not as efficient in those jobs because I don't like doing them jobs. So I would hire the person that is good at that, and I would, tap off of that there. So as we went on, things, they progress, and it's all to do with, I think, just references and getting jobs done, and people, word of mouth was a big thing for us.
So I'd like to think that I'm an expert in the field after 20 years, but sometimes I run across an issue of like a novice mistake that I made because I didn't pay attention to a tiny little detail. But it's the one thing that I didn't learn when I worked for the dealer was how to sort of price things, because they had everything very safeguarded so that you can't copy and paste that, which is great. But when you're trying to do it for yourself, it becomes a little bit of an issue. So for me, I remember thinking, if I'm in this specific area, I need to price lower because I need to try to collect people from this area. And then I would change that number every single time I had a different client. And that became really, really difficult to balance. And I have a big overhead. I have a warehouse. I bought a forklift a couple years ago. I have racking. So I know the number that it takes to keep my lights on and what it takes for me to pay my insurance, myself, and all the things. And so I have one number straight across. There's a very affluent area in Buffalo, and there are some areas that aren't quite as much, and they get the same percentage no matter what. Now I don't have to remember. I don't have to write it in the folder, look it up, and be inconsistent. So that was one of the things that kind of made me feel more like I'm a pro in this, even though there's days that I question it, was staying pretty consistent across the board in my numbers.
So interesting. Do you want to answer that, or?
Sure. Yeah, I think, for us being a generalist and kind of opening up the business from just kitchen designers to full-on interior designers has just offered us a lot of extra work, which is great, and a lot of creativity, which is awesome. It's the biggest part for me about the business and what I enjoy so much about it, because I often laugh. I'm like, I could just be all on my own and make the same amount of money that I'm making now with 6 people. But what I really like about it, and really what kind of drives me in this business, is the ability to, we have a lot of young girls that are right out of college, a lot of girls who have interned with me and have stayed on afterwards, and I love the fact that I've got these young women in construction and teaching them how to be secure on a job site, and how to, no, I know this is how this is supposed to be, and hey, you said this HVAC was going to be here and now it's here, all those kinds of things that you don't learn, just in interior design. So it's like these girls coming out of school in interior design and then teaching them that and giving them the opportunity to do the kind of things that you learn in school, but then also the job site, experiences, and really how to hold your own and let these people know that you know what you do, or at least act like you've been there before.
Okay, that sort of leads into another question that I had, which is, let's say your specialty is that you are strictly a kitchen and bath designer and you focus on those spaces in a home, and so there's an interior designer who's working on the rest of the spaces. How can you ensure that your kitchen and bath designs feel cohesive with the rest of the interiors? Do either of you have experience with that? Yeah, so I'd love to hear both of you. Yeah.
So that was one of the things that when we were just doing kitchens and baths, I kind of struggled with a little bit. I didn't feel like I had the control. And the truth of the matter is the heart of the home is always the kitchen. No matter what, no matter the square footage, it's always the kitchen. And I did struggle. I might have some control issues, possibly, I don't know. But I struggled with an interior designer coming in and then doing the rest of it, when I was like, but I did this and I know the feel and I know what this is supposed to look like. So now that's kind of been taken away. We do everything, and so I feel like we have a really nice opportunity to create a full home. And yeah, that's kind of, I guess I do have control issues.
We all.
So as specialty only bathroom kitchens, I am still touching other areas of the house that are not just the kitchen, because for every kitchen, they're like, well, I have this dining room and it's not giving me enough space and I want to knock down the wall. So my husband he owns a construction company, so we're a husband and wife duo. And so he'll come with me on the jobs and he'll be like, we're going to remove this wall, but when you do that, in Buffalo, a lot of the houses, the floors weren't underneath it. So now we're figuring out, we got to put the whole first floor down, because we don't want all these transitions and all that. Right. So it does extend a little bit beyond the kitchen, and I think a lot of people, even if you are just a kitchen designer, you'll find that you are doing that too. And so then when you start touching all that other stuff, you are picking out some wall colors. But I am not picking out your curtains. I am not procuring your couches and your rugs and stuff like that. We do ask, what is your style? How do we blend this in with the rest of the house? And we find out what pieces and stuff they plan on keeping, if they are going to come in and bring in an interior designer. I'm not going to say that I haven't picked out couches and all that stuff, but to me, I get lost in the weeds of trying lead times on... I just want to do kitchens. So it does extend a little bit beyond just the kitchen itself for interiors when you start knocking down walls and getting more into the heavy construction of it all.
Okay, and then I also wanted to, so when I first was learning about the topic for this panel and thinking in terms of niche or specialist versus a broader generalist, I was thinking of it in terms of, because we're at the kitchen and bath show, so I was thinking of it strictly in terms of like, are you a kitchen and bath designer or are you designing an entire home? But as we were talking, prior to this, it sort of, the conversation broadened to like maybe your niche means your aesthetic, or like maybe you focus, specialize in a certain aesthetic, or maybe you have, a really focused audience, a clientele that you particularly work with. So anybody can answer this, but I'd love to start with Lauren, because I remember that you had an interesting, tidbits about your aesthetic. So I'd love to hear you talk about your aesthetic and your ideal client.
So this is going to make everybody laugh, but I call my style swamp witch chic because I do a lot of dark, moody colors. I love black. I just did the Junior League Show House in Buffalo last spring, and we have to man the room. And I was very nervous because I knew that people were going to come into this space and they were either going to love it or they were going to absolutely hate it. And I didn't want to hear everybody hate it. And I figured actually that we were going to have more people hate it because I did black cabinets, black wainscoting on the wall, black countertops, black ceiling. Everything in the room was black, and it was so chic and it was so beautiful. And then I added my elements of sticks and moss. My light fixtures they looked like branches that were holding moons on them. And so I was surprised by the overwhelming majority of people that came in the space and absolutely loved it. And as a matter of fact, I found out while I was here, Berenson behind me, because they're also based out of Buffalo, created a mood board off of the Junior League Show House room that I did. And they created a kitchen that looks just very much like the one that I did. So I inspired people to be kind of weird. Like, my clients find me because I am a little bit weird. I'm definitely not for everybody. And I'm not saying that everything that I do is always going to be heavy and moody, but I do incorporate a piece of me into everything that I do. And I try to bring my clients out of their comfort zone, because when you're a designer, you can create anything, right? I can make you a beautiful white on white kitchen if that's what you want, but you're here to kind of push the envelope. So I do get a lot of clients reaching out to me because they're looking for something that's a little bit edgier and moodier.
Nice. Does anyone else want to talk about that kind of thing?
Sure. I mean, I do have a preferred client when it comes to the brownstones. It's great. I will never turn down a full gut renovation, but what I take pride in is, this is a 100-year-old building, and it comes with beautiful trim, plaster moldings, fireplaces. And yes, when we're walking through and they may be not sure what to do, I try to convince them that, this is how it was, this is how it should be. Strip the wood down, usually on the parlor level of the floor, it's a beautiful mahogany or something that they don't know. And, we need to just, that's just experience, trying to tell them, try to bring this house back to what it was. And I take a lot of pride. I think that's what, that would be my perfect client.
I was thinking that your specialty or your area is an example of somewhere where a person looking to hire you would really want you to specialize in that. So could you tell us a little bit about maybe some of the challenges of building in New York City and especially doing restorations?
I don't know if we have that much time. New York, because I've been in the business 35 years. I'm on my own 20 years. 10 years ago, the business has completely changed. And when I say changed, it's still the same guy who installs the toilet and does the electrical. All that's the same. But, access agreements, the DOB, dealing with permits, just all that stuff, it just gets, you just need to understand what you're doing before you start. So that's one aspect. The other thing then is just, we evolve over time. I think a lot of things now is just the technology, and if you're not staying up with the times, you're not doing it right. You have to. AI, it does help. It's something that we use as well. We do platforms now where everything is in one platform. You can basically do everything off of your phone. It helps clients. They don't have to be on the job site. They can see on a daily basis what's going on. I think that's a big plus for what goes on. But yeah, New York City is just a lot of red tape, but I think that's where we have a lot to offer. We've been doing it for so long, we know exactly what to do and how to deal with it.
And Stephanie, so in terms of doing full service design and sort of having this broader scope, could you talk about the advantages that come with that in versatility, or can you talk about maybe the project types and styles that you work with?
Yeah, so we definitely have a look. I think that we've kind of gotten to a place that people come to us for a certain look, but then we also work with a lot of people who are, want to push outside the box a little bit. I laughed with your description of what you do, because we have a girl who I'm like, her perfect style would be Halloween inspired. So, it's when we have that many girls and some different styles, it's nice because we can be like, oh, this is a perfect project for Chase, or this is a perfect, project for Kim. One that I personally experienced, we did a show home in 2024, and we are definitely more on a transitional side of things, and this client was kind of old school, old money, very, very, very traditional. Beautiful pieces of furniture that we incorporated into the house, but I feel like I grew so much from that experience because it was a show house. So I was really scared about being able to appeal to the masses, but bringing her home as well, because it was their home. And she pushed me a lot, and I pushed back at her a lot. And we were like, we developed a great friendship, and the house it turned out amazing. But with that, in Generalist, I think you had a question that was like, how has that helped with like media and publications and stuff? And that pushing me and me pushing her so much out of our normal design techniques and styles and whatnot, ended up getting us a full feature and traditional home of that home. So it pushing us out of that was like, get uncomfortable, dig in, and make it work.
Thank you. So I think I'm just going to ask a couple more questions, because then I want to see if anybody here has questions for you guys. But so my next question is about risks versus trade-offs. So do you feel that your track has ever limited your opportunities, or if it's brought you more opportunities, or if you're in a niche, does it dilute your brand or help it. And so I thought maybe I'd ask Lauren first what the biggest risk you've experienced because of your positioning, because I remember you saying that when you first started into your niche, you watched your clientele split in half, but it elevated the quality of the clientele, I guess you could say. So could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So I hired a branding coach 3 years ago because I sort of felt like I was stuck. I didn't know the direction I wanted to take my business into. And so she said, you have really beautiful work, but I'm not getting a sense of you. She said, if you could have any ideal client, who would it be? And everybody always laughs at this because I'm being 100% serious when I say this, but it would be the witch that gives the apple to Snow White, or like Dracula, because I like, again, the dark, the heavy, the moody, the weird. And she said, well, they're not going to hire you by what you are putting out there right now. So she said, we need to start niching you into finding your people, because you are getting hired to do lots of beautiful work, but let's find the people that are really going to love to work with you. And so I started doing that, and I got scared, and I did watch my business shift a little bit. It went from lots of people kind of down to, pipelined into something much thinner. But now the clients that I have specifically seek me out because they really wanted to have a specific look. I've been doing this a really long time, so lots of referrals. And I'm not saying every client is going to allow me to, paint their ceiling black, but it's going to allow me to do some edgier stuff. And you just have to be prepared for that when you do that. If you're used to getting 30 calls, 40, 50 calls a month, you're going to cut that in half, if not a little bit more, but you can charge more for your work because you're doing it impeccably now.
Okay, amazing. And okay, so my last question for you guys is, so I'm going to combine a couple questions. So are niches permanent, or do they have a shelf life? Is a hybrid model the most realistic path? And is the real power choosing a lane or knowing when to shift lanes, and how do you evolve and keep your clients that you've already built trust with? Does that make sense? Is that easy to answer?
Yeah. Yes. Yes and no. I think the niche is definitely important to know that you're very good at that particular job, but I think always as a business you got to be evolving, you got to be moving lanes. It's just, if you get stuck in that one thing, for us it's like, yes, there's certain guys and they're special, but for us we got to be always evolving, always moving, pivoting this way. And so I think continuously trying to grow and change.
I agree with that. So if you're not uncomfortable, if you're not changing, you're not growing. So I do think though you should always have a signature, but your signature will change. It's like your favorite flavor of ice cream at 10 is not the same one that you're going to have at 30 or 40, and you just grow and you evolve and you become more elegant and you refine your processes.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's strength in both. But like you said, if you're not changing and not facing fears, you're never growing. I've been doing this for almost 30 years at this point. So I've seen a lot of changes in the industry. And I think that the biggest part of it is evolving, constantly evolving. And we're even evolving every day, with our systems and our processes, and now AI coming in and me being a little resistant to it and everybody else being like, this is amazing. And so I think that, there's a good mix of both. But yeah, you have to be able to evolve.
Okay, I agree also with all of you guys. Okay, thank you for that. We're gonna see if anybody has questions here, but I was just curious if, again, just either as a refresher or to see if anybody changed their minds, if who's a specialist here? Who has a particular niche? Both, yeah, a couple of both. And then if you're more of a generalist or just have a broader scope. Also, the word generalist, to me, I have a hard time with it because I feel like I like saying broader scope, I think, as we've been talking, because I feel like you're still an expertise even if you have a broader, if you're doing more of a generalization in your design. But anyway, so does anybody in the audience have any questions, or if you wanted to share a challenge that you've had in defining what your niche is or anything like that?
Hi everyone, this is Sam from Toronto, Canada. I have a question for the designers. Recently, there have been some closet and kitchen accessories, the electrical version of them, like lifting up and down watch winders or spice racks. You just touch them and they lift up and down. How likely it would be that you're going to apply them in your kitchen or closet designs? Thank you.
So there's clients that are really interested in having high-tech kitchens and bathrooms, and you have to make sure that you have amazing contractors that know how to spec all that, because that's all electronic. You're Toronto, so you're like an hour and a half away from me. I go to Toronto all the time. And you guys are light years ahead of design-wise. You guys are, so I think you'd probably spec that out quite a bit. So make sure that you find contractors that are capable of doing that, but make sure you know about it, because people do inquire about it quite a bit.
It's interesting. Is that something you notice about Toronto, that they have advances or in the technologies?
Yes. So Toronto to me feels very European. I used to design a lot in Toronto until 2020, and that kind of changed how things go over the border. So yeah, they're more advanced than a traditional market.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have a question?
Hi, I have a quick question. I would assume for Miss Lauren. When it comes to construction and being a new designer, how do you recommend we kind of get our foot in the door with that? Do we just study construction books, or kind of just learn as we go? Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I'm Lauren, but you're
Oh
looking...
my gosh, I'm looking directly at her. I'm so sorry. I got you mixed up.
That's okay.
Honestly, anyone can answer this question. I just assumed.
I think once you get in and you're starting and you're working with a dealer or as a dealer, it's really just absorbing everything that you can. And that's kind of how I always felt. I always felt blessed to be in the position that I was in, and I took in every single moment. And especially in kitchen and bath design and construction sites and stuff, with the ladies that work with me, I always tell them, you're gonna screw something up. It's kitchen and bath design. There is something that's gonna happen. It's construction. It's, no offense, but it's working with a lot of men, and the communication's not always the best. And
unless you're married to one and you boss them around.
Right. Well, right. When I worked with my dad, it was great, because I would just call my mom, that pushy lady I mentioned earlier. But I just absorbed everything. I felt so blessed to be there, and just learned. But like I said, the mistakes are going to happen, and I don't get mad about the mistakes. It just is part of the deal. I still make mistakes, and I've been doing it for almost 30 years. So I think that, you just got to dive in. Just take it for what it is. Grab that horse by the reins and go with it. And with the ladies, if the mistake is made, I'm just let's just learn from it, because honestly, that is the way you learn, right? You kind of keep going through things, and then you're like, oh crap, I just screwed up those 2,000 refrigerator panels, and it happens, and we just don't let it keep happening.
The NKBA actually has a code book. I think it's $50. It might be worth looking into getting. And every state's gonna vary per codes and stuff like that. But like she said, you're gonna learn more from your mistakes, which I do, more than anything that you learn doing right. You'll never make the same mistake twice if you did it real bad. So.
That might be a good question for you too.
Well, to touch on that, I think yes, we made a mistake a couple of years back in the brownstone, and it was significant enough but we got through it. At the time, it felt awful, and it felt like, what am I doing here? You start doubting a lot of things, but we got through it. Stood by the guy, and he's my number one advocate today. And when I look for a reference, I go back to that guy, because this rosy reference, oh, they're great, they're amazing. I rather, hey, we had problems. We had big problems with this guy, but he stood there and he finished it and he got through it. And that reference gets me more work than any other reference.
I also, that just was making me think of another question for Antoine. How do you, when you're working on a project, what does it look like for you to pull the design team together, like the designers that you end up working with? Are you doing that, or is the designer coming to you, or the homeowner?
There's a bit of both. It's not, we don't do interior design ourselves. Sometimes it's the client. A lot of times the client bring them in, but they bring them in too late. I would love the designers to be in at the beginning. It just makes a lot of sense. That's when it's the client. But now I'm finding a lot of architectural firms seem to have design within their own company now. So that starts from the very beginning, and that's a big help.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a question?
So tell me a little bit more about how you went back to that client and asked for a review. Like,
because we stuck it out. Basically what it was windows we had ordered from Texas, and they weren't thermally broken, and it was a matter of who made the mistake. And this is like a $100,000 window, and we had to take it out, had to fix it. But during that process, a lot of people disappeared. We didn't. And that's why it was easy. The relationship now I still have with this guy, and as I said, my number one advocate since.
Hey, I have a question. When do you guys think that white and black is going to die out? I'm so tired of new builds, custom kitchens, white and black. When is it going to die out?
I don't think white's ever going to go out. I mean, as long as I've been doing this, there is some version of white. For a while it was like an off-white with a glaze and, all of those things. But white's always been around, so I think we're always going to see some type of a white kitchen, white cabinets. Now, I am happy to see, I feel like we're getting back into the woods again, obviously, for the last couple of years, which is great. I love the warmth. I love the oak and the graining of it. I am seeing lots of pops of color, a lot of jewel tones that we're using as accents lately, which I love. So I think we're evolving, but I really don't think that white is ever going to just be gone.
I don't mean like white as in gone. I mean like as that category of that modern farmhouse. I feel like that's all everyone is doing the last 5 years.
Nobody's asking for that anymore, and I'm not doing it for them even if they would.
Yeah, I work with a lot of customers to do a bunch of new builds and custom kitchens, and I've had nothing but modern farmhouse the last 2 years. So.
Well, that's a good time, though, to, if people are coming to you, figure out what's your signature style. What would you want to create? You know what I mean? Find your voice in this and tell people why you shouldn't be doing this anymore. Say that, the average kitchen shelf life is 10 years. Mm-hmm. And it is hard when you're doing new builds because they're going to do very basic stuff. Typically, it's bottom of the barrel costing or whatever. If they're going to force you to do a white, okay, fine. What backsplash can you put on that's going to make it totally different? What hardware can you do? What lighting? So there's ways to get around all of that. There's still people that ask me for white kitchens. I still do it, but those aren't the ones I take pictures of. Those don't end up on my social media. Something has to keep the lights on, interject you into that kitchen, and make it yours, even if they ask for white, even if they ask for black.
All right, well, thank you.
Do you guys say no to people if you don't, as a client? Like, do you say this is not a right fit if you don't feel it's a right fit?
I have learned to, that's a hard thing to do, right? Because you're supporting, you got to turn the lights on, you have to do your salary, you have to do all the things that are involved. So I think it's hard to say no, but I have learned to on occasion. And I think it's a gut. You kind of know up front, like, this is not going to work. But you take it and you do it, and guess what? It was miserable. So I've learned to trust my gut and just be like, this is just not a right fit, it's not the right whatever. It's rare that we do that, but we have done it.
Same thing. I usually don't say no at all, and that's one of my problems. So now I have somebody else do it for me.
I do. I do tell clients no. And I'll say it in the best possible way. And, when they ask for something, I'm like, why are we picking that? And again, my big thing that clients come to me is that I push them out of their comfort zone. So, yeah, I tell them no.
Thank you. Okay, we have one more question.
Hi. Okay, so you mentioned transitioning from Chicago to Indianapolis. And I was curious, how was that transition and kind of just solidifying and creating new business for you and expanding?
It was actually pretty seamless. Like I said, the one thing that I had to kind of revamp was who we were. So my business in Chicago was called Cupboards Design Group, and we were really just kind of remodels, kitchens, bathrooms, basements, things like that. When we moved to Indianapolis, I just expected that would be the exact same thing that I would be doing, and then we just kept getting more and more requests for full service design and people liking the work and I want you to do everything. So it just kind of naturally and organically expanded into what it is. It was a pretty seamless, we hit 2020 and COVID and all that, so that was a little shaky. But honestly, COVID was kind of a boom for us, a lot of people. Yeah. And yeah, it was pretty seamless. I did change the company name because the Cupboards was very niche-y, and that wasn't really what we were anymore, so we changed it to Stephanie Wyatt Designs. But I feel like I was pretty lucky in that, we did it pretty seamlessly and easily and hit some bumps, but that's what life is. That's how everything is. You just keep on trucking. So...
Okay. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for being here for this talk, and thank you guys. Everybody stayed the whole time. So thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the show.